Hello everyone and welcome to Be Like Christ for our Bible study through 2 Chronicles chapter 11. We talked about the kingdom of Israel dividing in the last chapter into the northern kingdom of Israel, the southern kingdom of Judah under the reign of Rehoboam. We're going to follow up on that and talk about what happened immediately after that in chapter 11. On our outline today, Rehoboam became king in about 975 BC after the death of Solomon. He reigned for 17 years according to 1 Kings chapter 14 and verse 21. He was king in Judah after the kingdom split. When the kingdom of Israel broke away, they appointed Jeroboam to be their king. He reigned for 22 years. Those two guys are going to be key in our character section. Rehoboam is the son of Solomon, takes over the throne after Solomon dies. We just mentioned that. Jeroboam is an interesting guy. He's introduced in more detail in 1 Kings. We don't have a lot about him in 2 Chronicles, but he was an Ephraimite who was originally a servant of Solomon's. And it was actually God who selected him to be the king over Israel because God knew that the kingdom was going to divide, and he appointed him to be the king. He told him to be faithful to him. That's not exactly what happens, but that's who Jeroboam is, king of Israel. And then we have the priests, Levites, and the godly citizens of Israel. After Jeroboam became king and turned away from the Lord, the priests, the Levites, and the faithful Israelites who lived in his territory in the north began migrating south to Rehoboam's territory in Judah because they wanted to serve the Lord. And then to our map, we have Rehoboam reigning from the city of Jerusalem, where the traditional capital of this united kingdom was. But after the kingdom divided, we talked about this in more detail in the last chapter. So if you want to go back there and reference that, there would be a greater discussion of this. But this really is key. The kingdom divides after Solomon, and the Rehoboam maintains control of the territory of Judah and Benjamin. This would become known as the Kingdom of Judah. It takes on the name of the largest tribe of Judah. And then in the north, those nations split off. They become the Kingdom of Israel, and Jeroboam is king over them. Sometimes you'll hear Judah referred to as the southern kingdom and Israel referred to as the northern kingdom, and I usually use that terminology, so you'll hear it from me moving forward. But just make sure that you know Israel's in the north, Judah's in the south, Jeroboam's over Israel, and they'll have their own succession of kings. Rehoboam's in the south, and they will have their own succession of kings. Sorry if you already know this information and feel like I'm repeating it ad nauseum, but I know there's a lot of people out there who may not be as familiar, and it really is key to remember this. And it is, in a way, kind of confusing because Judah, the southern kingdom, takes on the name of one individual tribe, right? So in the past, when we referred to Judah, it was just talking about the tribe of Judah, but now we're talking about the whole southern kingdom. And then Israel has been a term that we've used to just talk about the people of God collectively prior to this point. And now when we refer to Israel, most of the time we're only going to be talking about those northern tribes. So the naming is a little bit challenging, and so that's why I wanted to give some clarity. Chapter 11 takes us into the aftermath of the kind of civil war or the split that took place or was introduced in chapter 10. So verses 1 through 4, we're going to talk about God stopping Rehoboam from going to war with Israel, the people that have now broken away from him. After the people of Israel rebelled against Rehoboam's leadership, only the lands of Judah and Benjamin remained in his control, as we talked about. Well, Rehoboam wasn't going to tolerate this, or at least his plan was to take back all of the land and to bring everybody into subjection. So he gathered an army of 180,000 men, and he was going to start a war with the northern tribes. But a guy named Shemaiah, who was a man of God, was sent by God to Rehoboam to tell him to stand down and not to go to war against his relatives, essentially, the other people of Israel. God was going to allow the kingdom to divide. This was God's will. It was something that he already knew about. It was in his plan, and this was going to be the way that the nation moved forward. After God squashed Rehoboam's hopes to reunify the kingdom, Rehoboam set his mind on fortifying some of the cities that were under his control, because now he has Israel as an adversary in the north, and he also has Egypt and some other nations as potential adversaries in the south. So he builds up some of these cities, fortifies them. The cities are listed in the chapter. Some of them you'll see on the map, but not all of them. Bethlehem, Etam, Tekoa, Bethzur, Soko, Adullam, Gath, Marashah, Ziph, Adaraim, Lachish, Azekah, Zorah, Ajalon, and Hebron. Now our next section, verses 13 through 17, we're going to talk about faithful Israelites immigrating to Judah. We're not told the details in Second Chronicles, but in First Kings we're told that God actually selected Jeroboam to be the king of the north, and he told Jeroboam to follow his laws and to keep the instructions that God had given him. But very quickly Jeroboam departs from that instruction, and he departs from the Lord. According to First Kings chapter 12, sometime after Jeroboam was made king, he started worrying about his people in Israel going south to Judah to worship at the temple like they were supposed to, right? And this was a problem. He was worried that their loyalty was going to shift back to Rehoboam if they went back to Jerusalem. So he decided to do something stupid. He built 2 golden calves, one in Bethel and one in Dan, at the south and the north of his kingdom, his territory. And he told the people that instead of going to Jerusalem to worship, they could go to one of these sites where he had built these golden calves. Now this and other evils that Jeroboam did led to a migration of the faithful people in his kingdom down to the territory of Rehoboam. The priests, the Levites, and anyone who wanted to serve God faithfully left Jeroboam's land, went to Rehoboam's land in Judah. Jeroboam is said to have appointed his own priests who were not from the tribe of Levi, and they were set to minister at his holy sites. So very quickly we see Israel departing from the Lord. That's a trend that's going to continue for years to come, as you know if you're with us for our king study. The final verses 18 through 22, we're just going to talk about Rehoboam's family. Rehoboam had 18 wives and he had 60 concubines, so he did not learn the lesson from his father Solomon about what a plurality of wives can do to you. 2 of his wives are highlighted in the text, a woman named Mahalath and another woman named Maacah. Maacah was, interestingly, the daughter of Absalom. You remember who Absalom was? He was David's son who rebelled against David and tried to dethrone him. He was killed in his rebellion by Joab. Talked about that. It seems like it's been a while ago. But this Maacah, the daughter of Absalom, was Rehoboam's favorite wife, we're told. Rehoboam made Abijah, Maacah's son, his crown prince. And so that is 2 Chronicles chapter 11. We're moving into a new phase of history of these 2 now divided nations. Now for our application, I want to take a lesson from these individuals who migrated from Israel to Judah. I think the sacrifice of these faithful people in Israel is admirable and is something to consider in our own lives. Many of the people who left Israel and went to Judah probably didn't want to leave their homes. We know that the way that they received their land originally was that it was given to them by God. That was their family land. Those homes that they were living in had probably been developed over generations. And for application, we need to have hearts that are willing, if necessary, to do whatever it takes to be the people of God. For some of us, that might mean packing up our house and living somewhere else. For many of us, that sacrifice may look rather different, but we need to be willing to make this kind of sacrifice that they make here, and they give us an admirable example.